Should we create an incentive for social and political groups to practice self-hostage taking? If asked this question outside the topic of transgenderism, I imagine most people would unequivocally answer no. However, basing medical and social treatment of trans-identifying people on their suicide rates does just that. For example, assume some data showed lower suicide rates among adults who desired and received orchiectomy and vaginoplasty compared to those who desired these procedures but were denied them. Even with such data, we couldn't rule out self-hostage taking as the explanation for higher suicide rates in the group denied the procedures. Even if the participants did not know they were going to be in a study, they may still reason, based on the rhetoric of some politicians, doctors, pundits, and members of the public, that killing themselves when they are not affirmed will advance their group's cause. While this may seem like a massive leap to some, I don't think it is. Are we really to believe that an ideology that can convince someone to sacrifice their fertility couldn't also convince them to sacrifice their life? Moreover, if treatment is based upon suicidality, which would include unsuccessful suicide attempts and suicidal thoughts, then the sacrifice is obviously lower, and the individual would still be around to reap the rewards, from their perspective, of a more trans-affirming society. One objection among many I expect to hear is that if we approve treatments that reduce suicide in patients with depression, then why wouldn't we approve medical treatments for trans-identifying patients if they similarly reduce suicide mortality? The obvious answer is that while you can do blind controlled trials for drugs that treat depression, you cannot do the same for puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, gender reassignment surgeries, or for social affirmation, since in every case the person will know whether they are in the control or the treatment group. I believe this answer is sufficient on its own, though it's obviously non-exhaustive given the plethora of medical complications associated with the hormonal and surgical interventions given to some trans-identifying people. If you're still not seeing the problem with basing medical and social treatment on group suicide rates, imagine this. Some whites who identify as black start getting pissed that society disapproves of their use of the N-word, and they start threatening to kill themselves unless they get the N-word pass. Would that be justification for letting them say the N-word? For now, you say no, but what about if the bodies start piling up? What then? You don't want to be responsible for someone else's suicide, do you? Would you rather have a dead white friend or a living black friend? I hear race and gender are both just social constructs, so what gives? So you might concede and let whites start wearing blackface and using the N-word. But what if anorexics start killing themselves to secure liposuction for their friends? What then? Do you let doctors take orders from customers the way waiters at a restaurant do? Doctor, what would you like today? Patient, I'd like my legs amputated because it really gets me going sexually. Doctor, coming right up. Would you like anything else with that? Conclusion. Suicide is a tragedy and no one wants anyone to take their own life. Yet if in our discourse we tell people that we will reward their group so long as the death count is high enough, what can we expect other than more deaths? Indeed, how can we expect other social groups not to adopt this strategy if it is proven successful?